All right. Hey, and welcome everyone. Hello, folks on Instagram. Hey, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube people. It's me, Ashley, coming back on again to chat with you on what makes PD effective for music educators, this series that I began. I'm back with part 3 this evening. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for rejoining, I guess, if you've been with me for a while. And if this is the first time, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Ashley Cuthbertson. I use the pronouns she and her, and I'm based here in the Washington, D.C. area in Northern Virginia. I'm a music educator, and I'm also the owner and CEO of A. Cuthbertson Consulting. We're an educational consulting firm that works with K-12 music educators to improve their classroom environments, to better attract, engage, and retain music students in their programs by centering equitable and culturally responsive practices. And so I have had the great privilege in this particular season, middle of like winter, early spring conference season, in addition to traveling for my music teams that I support, but also for lots of conferences. I'm just getting back from Jacksonville, Florida. I was there last weekend for the Organization of American Kodály Educators, their conference. So I realized this is the 10th conference, the 10th Oak conference I've been to since the very first one I went to in Atlanta in 2014. So that's crazy, a decade of participating in the Oak Conference. So it was great to reconnect with old friends, see what else is going on in the Kodály world. And, back at it. We'll be back on the road this weekend. I'll be heading to Reno, Nevada. I was invited to be the featured speaker for the Music Teachers National Association, their conference that's coming up next week. But ahead of the conference, they do pedagogy days. And so I was invited to be the featured speaker for the DEI portion of their pedagogy day this Saturday. So I'll be doing just a quick trip to Reno. I've never been to Nevada before, so I'm excited. Just a quick trip to Reno this weekend, and then I'll be back. But I wanted to come on and talk about effective PD for music educators because a few weeks ago, I was thinking about the many travels that I go on affords me the ability to talk with lots of different music educators all across our country and internationally. And by and large, music educators are just some of the most dedicated just human beings that I know, especially to our profession. Hey, Jocelyn. Just so dedicated. And we all believe this common vision, right? That music education is for everyone. Music educators that I talk to, they are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for the skills, hungry for the resources to better engage all of their students, regardless of their students' background, to really improve the ability for all kids to have an equitable access to music education. And I continue to talk to different music educators, and I continue to gather, different, hey, Jocelyn, gather different information. I'm just struck by the fact that music educators are hungry for great professional learning, but often we're kind of getting the short end of the stick. And I know that it's not because of school leaders and district leaders not wanting to. Oftentimes it's just a matter of like not necessarily knowing, where to find great PD providers, or also just not knowing how to best support music educators, right? Music is a very specific discipline, and often a music educator might be the one or maybe two or three in a school, and so sometimes it's hard to know like how to best engage the folks. And so I decided to come on and do this series because as I was unpacking the need for great PD specifically for music educators, I realized like this is a long conversation. And so I'll be coming on Mondays and Wednesdays in March and April just to chat a little bit about components of great high quality PD that's really effective for music educators. And so in the first part of the series, I came in and talked about, obviously, probably the most obvious, but I think not always, one of the most important key components of effective PD for music educators is that the PD is actually music content specific. Sounds like it should be a no-brainer, but oftentimes, I know for me especially, I experience quite often being in like a math PD or a literacy PD, and there might be nuggets that I can take back to my music program. But the frustration there is that I always had to translate things into my context, right? And great PD shortcuts you to success. So if I'm always having to translate something into my context, that's not providing me what PD is supposed to be doing, right? There's no shortcut when I still have to translate. And then last time I came on for part 2 to talk about adult learning theory and making sure that we are putting those components of adult learning theory into the PD, right? So not just lecturing at teachers, making sure that it's actionable, making sure that we're taking into account the prior knowledge that adults already have, right, into the PD that we're crafting. And that goes for music educators as well. And so tonight I wanted to come on, probably not too long tonight, to chat a little bit about the next part of what makes PD effective for music educators, really educators by and large, but especially in our music content, which is that it is collaborative. And so your department, or your, if you are by yourself, right, you might often feel like you're kind of on an island, right? And as music educators, that feeling of being alone, or that feeling of not quite having people to hook into, is just belying the problem that we have, which is a great PD should have an element of collaboration in it always. So I want to talk about 3 reasons why making sure that your PD is including elements of collaboration is just going to ensure that it's more effective for your music educators. And so the first one I want to talk about was, of course, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads are better than 2, right? Obviously, when you have more people's thoughts and ideas in a place, it's more likely that they'll be able to come up with better ideas, right? So one reason, very obviously, that why collaboration is important in great PD is that it helps teachers to generate new and just creative ideas when you're working with other people, right? One person's strengths and where they're really shining might be a place where somebody else is experiencing some opportunities, and they're maybe looking for strategies, things for them to do. Working together with somebody who already has kind of gained these great skills, that's a great way for music educators to be able to collaborate and make everybody's ideas better. Sometimes, another thing I've noticed in my own PD journey and the PD that I facilitate for teachers, which always has an element of collaboration. In fact, I often, I have, like, online offerings, and I have in person, and I have things that are live and things that are not. And I always steer people towards the live in-person PDs that I have, because there's nothing like being able to work in person with music educators, both me working to facilitate with the team, but also the team being able to work together. And so I think it's really important when we're considering, like, what kinds of PD offerings are going to be best. Of course, there's lots of online offerings, different things that you can do, but I think there always needs to be that element of collaboration, because being able to talk through something with another person who maybe has already experienced success in the area that you're looking to have some success is going to be a way for you to learn from that person's knowledge and experience. And being able to articulate the great things that you're doing in your classroom are only going to be able to reinforce those things that you're doing, right? So it's important to make sure that we remember that as music teachers who may only have, you might be by yourself, or you might have one other person, right? But we need opportunities to be able to get together and to talk, so that we can be able to share those great ideas with each other, help each other to work through different things. And so that's the first thing I wanted to mention. And then second, when we think about reasons why collaboration and PD are really helpful, great PD is transformative by nature, right? So my purpose always when I work with a team is, even if I'm only working with them for one time, is that the way that they entered into the space that I'm facilitating will not be the way that they leave the space, right? It might not be a huge groundbreaking transformation, but there will be some kind of transformational shift that those music educators will have gained. I really feel that that's my purpose when I work with teachers, is that I'm there to give you that shortcut to success. So there should be some sort of transformation, no matter how small it might be, right? Sometimes when we're going through those transformations, when we're engaging in professional learning, not sometimes, always, there's always going to be moments of conflict. There's always going to be moments of things that you used to do versus new ideas that you're being confronted with. And how are those things going to work together? Or maybe one thing is going to overtake the other, right? Maybe something needs to be replaced by something that's new. And working in collaborations with others, when you're working through those conflicts, for a better interest of words, working with other people allows you to not feel like you're so alone and having that thing happen. Sometimes when I work with music teachers, the first step of what I do is actually not like teaching them music strategies and implementation. It's actually like making sure that the people in my professional development session feel safe enough to be able to ask the hard questions, that they feel like they belong in that space enough that they can move and talk the way that they need to talk, because to be able to learn the things that you need to learn, just like with our kids, right? To be able to take those risks that you need in order to really get from point A to point B or Z or wherever you're going, you need to be able to do the hard things. And when you work in collaboration and you don't feel like you're the only person working through this hard thing, what I have seen is it's way more likely that those teachers are actually going to commit and do the things that need to be done to make the changes that they're trying to make, versus when you're on your own, right? There's no like built-in accountability when you're by yourself, other than the accountability you might be holding for yourself. But when you're just by yourself, one, you might feel like I'm the only person who didn't know this, right? So there might be some shame associated with it. And two, you don't have anybody else to kind of commiserate with to help you to move forward, right? So when we think about reasons why that collaborative piece is so important and great transformative PD, sometimes that collaborative place is there just as a way to serve as some accountability, and also a way for teachers to feel like they're not so alone in making these changes in their professional practices and in their programs. And then the last thing I wanted to say about collaboration and the need for great collaboration in our music education programs, our PD programs, specifically for music teachers, is that there needs to be a sense of community for our music educators. You know, when you're a high school social studies teacher, you probably have some other folks at your high school who are also teaching social studies or other humanities courses, and you kind of have a little bit of a built-in community. But when you're a music educator, you might be the only one or the only one of two, or maybe you're not the only music educator at your school, but you might be the only choir teacher at your school, right? Maybe your partner music educator is a band teacher or a guitar teacher, right? And so, as I said before at the top of our chat this evening, sometimes you might be feeling like you are an island by yourself, the things that you are doing. And when we are looking at how do we let great professional learning move people forward, we need for people to feel like they're not alone, right? That sense of community is so, so important. And for music educators, where it might not be built in, right? There might literally not be other people, or you might be one of two, right? That sense of community becomes even more important to making sure that folks have the support that they need to keep moving forward. Many times when I work with my music teams, where I see them over time, this is actually a shift that I recently made. So I'll share a little bit about you. What I used to do is just do like a couple of different workshops over, a few months and come back in and whatever. But what I found was that in between those times of me coming and doing, a workshop for a couple of hours, maybe in like August, and then coming back in November and doing another one, what I found was that the teachers were on board with what I was showing them and what I was giving them, but something happened when they got back to their classrooms. And maybe this has happened to you as well. You have, these great strategies that I've shared, these great mind shifts that I've shared with you, and now you're doing it with your kids, and then something happens and you get stuck. And so what I actually have done with my main PD offering, which I'll share a little bit about in just a moment, but my main PD offering used to just be workshops, but now it is workshops and coaching, because what I found was time after time, the teachers, when I would return to them the second time or the third time, they were very much on board and wanting to make these changes, but then something happened and they got stuck and they were not able to keep on moving forward. When you have a community around you, it helps you to be able to keep moving forward and get unstuck. It might be because, again, two heads are better than one, three are better than two. So getting unstuck may have been that you're able to talk with somebody who's already experienced getting themselves unstuck and can share with you some of those strategies. It might be that what got you stuck was like a conflict that you had between what you thought you were going to do and what you were doing before, and this new idea that now you've been presented with. Working in collaboration with other people can help you to talk through those areas of conflict so that you can keep moving and get unstuck. And then finally, that sense of community, having people around you to talk with, bounce ideas with, off of, and really just help you not feel like you're an island by yourself, is so critical to making sure that PD is effective for us as music educators. And so as I continue to talk about this, the series, right, of what makes PD effective for music educators, the idea of collaboration, I think, is going to show up probably a couple other times. But it's also important for me to be clear that when I say collaboration, I mean collaboration with other music educators, right? It's great to collaborate with your colleagues from other disciplines. And in fact, I think there's so many great like arts integrated ways for us to work alongside science teachers and language arts teachers and math teachers. And I'm 100%, 110% on board with that. And I want to be very clear that when I say what makes effective PD for music educators, great PD for us, is that we have the opportunity to collaborate with each other, with other music educators, people in our discipline. That's really, really important. So not just any old collaboration with any old discipline teacher. It's got to be teachers who are also music educators as well. So that's all I had for this installment of the series. Thank you for joining me. And as I said before, this is what I do now, right? So I have the great privilege of being entrusted to work with music teams, mostly at the district level, all across our country, music educators, even internationally now. And I don't take it for granted the wonderful things that I get to experience by way of working with the music educators who are entrusting, their professional learning to me. And so I wanted to share a little bit before I go tonight about what I currently am offering. And so my main offering is my signature PD program, which is undergoing a little bit of some changes and some tweaks. And so maybe I'll tell you a little bit about that. The main tweak is that I am working. Of course, another hard thing about being a music educator is that we don't always have the time to be able to do lots of, half-day PD sessions, which is what my main PD program is. It's 5 half-day workshops. And so as I know that is a challenge that many of my music educators that I support are running into, I'm working on taking my full in-person program and making parts of it hybrid. And so parts of it will be modules that you can access, but then the other part will still be the regular old workshops. And then, of course, as I said before, what I found was that when I just did workshops, teachers got great information, they were excited, and then they went back to their classroom and got stuck. So my program, regardless, will still continue to have the coaching component, which is what we do in between the sessions each month to be able to keep moving, to discuss those problems of practice, and to be able to move forward and to really incorporate a culturally responsive approach into our program so that music education can be equitably accessed, I should say, for all of our students. So right now, if you can believe it, I'm already having conversations with district teams all over the place about bringing this program to their music educators. And so if you're interested in having this program for you and your team, I highly recommend that you get in touch with me. You can have your fine arts supervisor or your music supervisor reach out to me. If you're on Instagram, in my bio, there's a place where you can go to get more information about that. If you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, head to my website, www.ashleycuthbertson.com, and there's a contact form where you can reach out to me to set up a conversation about what this PD program could look like for your team and your district. I do also have some spring coaching days that I'm offering for this spring, and so we're getting towards the end of when I'm going to have availability. So if you're interested in me coming and working with you in your school or your team, your music team in your school for a day or even half a day, make sure you jump on that soon because it's getting to be the end of March here, which means my availability will be closing pretty soon. And I do have some availability in April and May if you're interested in having just an introduction workshop, especially if you're interested in the work that I'm doing, but you're not sure that you want to jump into the full program. The introduction workshop is a great way to get introduced to me, to the approach, and to the way that I support music educators and really making these transformational changes in their program. So if you're interested, but you're not sure you want to go all the way into the full program, this spring is a great time to have me come out and do just the intro workshop. And I have some availability in April and May to do that. All right, well, that is all I have for this third installment of our series, What Makes PD Effective for Music Educators. I'll be back on Wednesday for part 4, and I hope to see all of you then. All right, bye. Have a good night, everybody.